guys, it's Lisa. Thanks so much for coming back by. I know it's been a really long time since I made a video, and that's just because of life and everything that's going on in the world right now. It actually had started a little earlier in my book because I do a lot of business directly with people in China. So I had already started to feel the effects of that with some of my inventories and things. So I've kind of been dealing with this since January. Anyways, because of that, I kind of lost my focus on doing any videos, and really felt like I needed to get back to it a little bit. When I started doing my videos, I kind of did them because I made a promise to someone that I would tell the story of how we got our house for $101. And as of yet, I haven't gotten there. And it's really the whole point of why I did this. And so I think just because of what's going on in the world right now, it kind of reminded me that, you might not have a long time left to do the things that you promised people you would do. And so that's why I'm here, and that's why I'm focusing on this, and hopefully I'll get this video out pretty quickly so that I can start making good on my promise. I think this story is going to take a couple of videos, so I hope you'll bear with me because I also hope it's a good story to you. So we bought our house for $101, and if you're new to our channel, it's a unique story. So I'm about to tell it, but if you want to see the house, I've got some tours up before this video that kind of show the main level and the upstairs, and hopefully the outside is coming soon. Our journey actually started almost a whole year ago, and by the time I get this video up, it might actually be a year. Our journey started before this, but it actually started on April 22nd of 2019. So I think it's about time I tell my story. So we're going to back up a little bit. Some background. I have a husband. He never shows up in my videos because he does not like to be in videos, and that's okay. We have 5 kids. My husband is a farmer. He is a generational farmer, but he hasn't always been a farmer. In fact, when I met him at a Christian college where we both went to school at, he was studying to be an accountant with a goal to be a lawyer. And I thought that sounded pretty nice. So that was one of my reasons that, you get that box checklist of, okay, he meets this quality and meets this quality. Well, that helped him meet equality. So I was really happy with that. But in the end, he ended up being an accountant for a long time. And about 10 years ago, his father got diagnosed with Parkinson's disease. And so he had to give up farming, and my husband, who had never intended to be a farmer ever, took over the family farm. And for those of you who are city kids, which was me, and we lived in a pretty big city, it sounded very glamorous to move to the farm and start farming and just, be part of nature and away from people. And we were already homeschooling, so it just seemed to all go really well together. So yeah, we did that. And we moved about 3 hours away. My family is from that city. It's not where I was born or where I grew up initially, but spent a large part of my life. And they still live there. So we go back sometimes. And but we moved here, and when we moved here, we started renting some different houses, and we ended up in the house that we're in currently. And honestly, it wasn't where we intended to live permanently. It's actually a really, really nice piece of property. It is a farm, but most of the farm is rented out for various reasons. Go back a minute. My husband is farming his family farm. But his parents are still alive, so they still live in the family farmhouse. So we can't live on the farm, but we had to live near the farm so that my husband could get to the farm often. So we are renting a house, a farmhouse, and it's got gorgeous views, access to a creek. We're out in the middle of nowhere. It's actually a nice place. But when we moved into it, it's a rental. It's not our house, and it's not for sale, and it won't be for sale. We've inquired a few times, and knowing that, it becomes, just different. It's not yours. It can't be yours. And that's okay. It doesn't have to be yours to live in it. In some ways, I feel like maybe I should just have left well enough alone and rented for the rest of my life. But we stopped homeschooling our oldest daughter 4 years ago. And when we lived out in the country with all of our kids and we homeschool, it's a lot different than whenever you send your kids to school, especially my daughter who likes to sign up for everything. They're like, oh, it's basketball? Sure, I'll play. It's volleyball? I'll play. It's soccer? Not soccer, we don't have soccer. Softball? Sure, I'll play. So she was always coming to town for various things. And we live about 5 miles from town, including about a 2-mile drive down a road that's not tire friendly. I say that as we get a lot of flat tires on that road. And last year there was a lot of ice, and so they actually stopped bringing the buses down our road for over a month. So I had to bring the kids into town every day, and that kind of helped my husband to be like, well, maybe we don't have to stay here forever. And the house is big, but we have 5 kids, and when we moved into the house, we had 3 kids. And so we don't fit in the house quite like we used to. And my kids, there's not only 5 of them, they're getting bigger and they're fitting less and less. And it just seemed like the right time to start looking for another house about 5 years ago. But if any of you are farmers, you might know that over the last probably 10 years, but specifically 5, the income from farming kind of went down. And a lot of housing prices actually have gone up because other areas of employment have actually improved in that time period. And the housing market has started to recover. So it's kind of a bad combination when you have less and less money and things cost more and more. We had enough money for living in things, but not to buy a house. In November of 2018, we actually found a house that I really kind of liked. And I asked my husband quite a bit, and it was the first time that he wasn't like, no. But it didn't take long to realize it wouldn't work because it didn't have 2 bathrooms in it. And about that time when I was looking at the house and kind of thinking about it, I just had this, I prayed about it. And in my head, it was, you know what? I've got this. Don't worry about it. And I actually thought that meant that somehow this house was going to work out and we were going to buy it. And then it didn't work out and we didn't buy it, and it sold to someone else for about what I said it was worth. And I was a little confused, maybe a little bit frustrated, but then I decided, you know what? I'm in the house that we're in, and it's not ideal, but it's a nice, it is a nice house. It has what we need as far as, it does have enough bedrooms. They're just small. And yeah, people have to share bedrooms, but they'll live. So I had actually started writing out a plan of how I was going to work on the house. I know it wasn't ours, and sometimes it's hard to put time and effort into a house that's not yours, but I was like, okay, we're going to start redecorating this house, and we're going to start making it how we want to live. And now, about that time, November as well, our town got a Dollar General. Now, normally you're like, how come a Dollar General has anything to do with you buying a house? Well, our Dollar General is the only, before that we had a gas station. We have about 1,000 people in our town. And so it's one of those, there's an empty lot, now there's Dollar General. But there's 2 paths that you could take home from Dollar General to our house to get to the road. There's one, so it's like a big square, and you could go this way, and that's like the main roads. Or you could go this way. It's a little bit faster. And at the end of this little road, there was this house right here. And this house was one that I actually remembered because in 2001, we lived in this area for 6 months while my husband finished his master's. He had started it before we got married, and he'd been doing a lot of classes online, but he needed to come here and finish for 6 months. So we actually moved up here. We rented an apartment, and he finished his school. While we were here for that 6 month time, we were invited to like a Bible study Christmas party for some friends of ours at their church. And their youth group, it wasn't really youth, it would have been young adult leaders, lived in the house at this curb right here. Okay. And that's where the Christmas party was at. So I remember going into this house and falling in love with it. And I was like, oh, this house is so awesome. And I remember thinking, wow, I'd love to live in this house and fill it with kids. Which is funny because at the time I had no kids and I wasn't interested in having any anytime soon. I was married to my husband, but that was it. I remember asking the lady that lived here, hey, what does the rest of your house look like? And she's like, oh, it's just a bunch of bedrooms, and it may have been under some rehab in hindsight. And that house that I wanted to live in and fill with kids is this house, the one that I am recording this video in. So my story, I guess, started in 2001. But because I had always liked this house, every time I would come home from Dollar General, which was often, I would drive down the little road and I would see the house sitting here. And I knew it was empty. There wasn't anyone living in it. And I also knew that there were some problems with it because there was a hole in the roof. And I wondered, I had no idea what was going on with it, but I kept wondering, is it going to come for sale, or are they going to put it on a foreclosure? I figured it was going to go online and it was going to be for sale. But one of the days that I was driving around, a sign went up in the yard. And it said that the house was going for auction. Okay, I've never bought a house on an auction before. I've never really been interested in an auctioned house before, but I was interested in this house, so I was like, oh, well, that would be kind of cool, you know. So I drove past it, and I noticed that the day that it was supposed to be open for a tour was on Easter, which actually, I guess I said it wrong. My days started with April 21st of 2019. And really before that, I saw the sign and I knew it was coming up for auction. But remember, we didn't really have any money. And my husband, he was okay with the idea of maybe moving, but he wasn't really excited about it. I mean, moving isn't an easy thing. Plus, with a hole in the roof, I knew the house was going to need some work. So I wasn't really even sure if anything would come of it. But I wrote down the dates of the auction and then an open house that they were having. And so I was like, okay, I'll write this down. So I did. And I mentioned it to my husband, who kind of, oh, okay. Well, Easter Sunday, which that's what it was, the 21st was Easter Sunday, comes around. And unlike this year, we had a big family gathering for Easter. And I asked my brother-in-law if I told him about this, what was going on, like, I've got any interest in it. And now he likes to remodel houses, and he likes big old houses. And my mother-in-law likes big old houses, and other people in our family do like houses like this. And I asked him if he wanted to go. Well, yes, I do. I would like to go to I want to go to the open house. The open house was the next day, and they were still going to be in town for the holiday. And he's like, yeah, I want to go. In fact, he's like, let's go drive around it right now. So I asked, my brother-in-law's going, my sister-in-law's going, my father-in-law's going, my husband, not going, not interested. He wanted to take a nap. So I get in the car with my in-laws, and we all drive up here. And we walk around the house, and honestly, I didn't know what to think. I mean, you could tell that there was a big hole in the roof. You could tell that there were windows boarded up. But you could tell that there was an air conditioning unit and that it appeared to maybe be functional, which actually the house that we had looked at before this didn't have air conditioning at all. And so my husband was like, we're not buying a house without air conditioning. It's hot here. We're getting ready to leave, and this lady comes up and says, hey, do you want to go inside the house? We're like, well, yeah, we want to go inside the house, but we'll come back tomorrow with the open house. And she's like, no. I'm helping take care of it. I know I have a key. Just come on in. So we went inside. Before we walked inside, I was interested in the house, but honestly, let's talk about this for a minute. It had a hole in the roof. And we live in a fairly wet area. We get a lot of rain. I knew with a hole in the roof that my worst case scenario, and what I kind of thought probably would happen, is that there was probably a lot of water and it had probably filled up in the basement of the house, and that it was probably sitting full of water in the basement, and that mold had probably come up from the basement and started, growing all over the house, and that the floors could have even been soft, and it could be structurally unsound just due to the water, not talking about the boarded up windows. And I didn't know what to expect, but that was my concern. So we walked into the house, and of course, I think a lot of other people thought it looked like a lot of work because, well, you'll find out why later. But I wasn't scared. I remembered the house, although I remembered it being a much nicer house, which turns out a lot of other people remember it being a much nicer house too. But it still had good bones, and the floors weren't soft, and there was a hole in the roof, but you couldn't tell on the inside. There is a place that has some water damage, and that's because of a leak around a chimney. It has nothing to do with the hole in the roof. And I couldn't believe it. I could not believe it that walking around, it still looked okay. Well, try this again. Salvageable. And I like to use that word because if you have, the house, but also like you as a person, if you're a religious person, finding out that you're salvageable, that you're worth taking the time on, that you're worth investing in. That's always a really encouraging thing to be, is salvageable. And it was salvageable. But that is my first answer to prayer. And you're gonna find out that there's 5 different places where we had an answer to prayer. So I hope you'll come back and see what else happened. Obviously, we bought the house and we bought it for $101, but there's a little bit more to the story than that. Thank you so much for stopping by. And if you'd like to see more of our journey, we've got a few more videos out and we do have more coming. So thanks so much. God bless. Bye.